that you can interact and help veterans, and really grateful for you being here this evening. I know I'm grateful for Marcus as well. I think that we're just trying to get him back up online here. So, but really grateful for him, coming in from Prime Therapeutics to talk to us too, a great company. And then to Mark. Mark, it's been great. It's great working with you every day. Appreciate you being here. You're really, I think you were born to do this kind of stuff. You mentioned it earlier, and I was just thinking after you said it that you're absolutely right. This is exactly the kind of stuff and where you're at your best. And I'm really grateful that you're here with us tonight, especially with all the support U.S. Bank has given us. It's good to have you here. So I personally just wanted to say thank you for that. So
thanks, Ed.
With that, I want to turn it over to one last person, and that's Mike Pavic, who I want to give a quick shout out to too. So, Mike, you do so much. You really embody what is just everything I think that veterans do right. When you reached out to us, to the Eagle Group, as you were getting ready to transition and retire from the Army after how many years?
22.
22 years. You started reaching out way early. You were talking to people. I mean, you did everything right. And then when you got here, you took every piece of information that people gave you and you ran with it and you did it, and you just did it. You didn't question it. You just did it, and you made it work. And the thing is it paid off for you in spades within a very short timeline when you got here. You set a tremendous example, like I no doubt know that you did while you were in the service. You continued to do it today. I'm so glad that we've got you on the team. And you're just the best person to lead through this panel. Thank you for doing it. I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Adam. It was, I like to think I had a plan and knew what I wanted to do when I got out of the military, but the reality was I had neither. And so Eagle Group was huge in helping me understand the job market, the positions, my value proposition, where I fit and where I didn't fit. So it's been a pleasure to work after landing a job at MTS to be able to help others. One real quick thing, admin, Bob, could we upgrade Marcus to panelist? Because he's on as an audience member right now, I believe. And so while Bob's working on that, I'd just like to say again, Bob?
If he signed in with a different email address, then I might not see him. Let me look, see if I can find him.
Okay.
I see him.
So,
he's in the list.
So while, here we go. Great. So Marcus, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do is just turn it over to our panelists first and just let them introduce themselves. So for each one of you, if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself, your company, what you do there and your position, and then why you are personally involved with supporting vets. So let's start with Mark.
Thank you. Again, my name is Mark. I'm at the U.S. Bank. I've been with the U.S. Bank for, I think, since about 2013, where I first came on to be the military recruiter. I retired from the Army after 24 plus years in 2005 and walked right into a job, had a job, and I got recruited away from that job. And then 2008 came along and found myself unemployed. And the company went out of business, and I went, nah, no problem. It was around December. I'll just get another job. Never had to look before. After the holidays, I'll take the time off. And I didn't realize how times have changed, and I did not have the job seeking skills I thought I had because I never had to look. Came out of the Army after 24, 25 years, walked into 2 jobs, I was recruited away, and all of a sudden I had to look. And I think I made every possible mistake possible to do in my job search. I didn't take advantage of the workforce centers. I didn't take advantage of networking groups. There really wasn't much of that going on. But at U.S. Bank, I really did find a home. I took my experience from staffing and working in corporate recruiting, and I was able to take that, my experience as a veteran, an unemployed veteran, knowing those struggles, and really focus all those things to help others. And that's where I really found my joy and happiness, is when I find that, help somebody, they find success. I spent some time working for the state of Minnesota as a veterans employment rep in between there, and I came back to my current position here in talent acquisition, but still focusing on the military recruiting.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
You bet.
Dana.
Hello, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, everyone. Dana Sokoll. I'm Director of People and Culture at a company called Siteimprove. Been here for almost 3 years. I have over 15 years of experience within recruiting and HR. However, I've held multiple positions. First one to graduate from my family, so I too had a learning curve on what did I want to do for the rest of my life, and so I had 3 to 4 different career changes, and most of my experience is from the agency side, which I was super passionate about, helping people figure out where they fit and not finding them just a job. And so that's why I'm excited to be here, and Siteimprove is currently, implementing some programs where we can continue to help individuals make sure they find the right career fit. Siteimprove, we are a software company. It's a SaaS product, and basically our mission is to help make the digital world a better place. So we work behind the scenes with companies to make sure that their websites are functional, but also have the quality and accessibility requirements so everyone can use their site. That's
Thanks
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Dana. You know that career fit is so critical and really so difficult from the transitioning member's point of view, because you're trying to figure out the industries, the positions, and it's all new lingo for that member. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next, Marcus.
Hi. So I can't figure out this video thing. I'm not used to using Zoom, I use WebEx, so I apologize for that. A little bit about myself. I think, that my first actual job out of college was active duty Army, where I was stationed down in Fort Polk as a CBRN specialist. So starting from there, when I came back, I worked in wholesale for, HVAC, worked at the VA for a stint, cut grass. And then I went into QA at Prime Therapeutics on a consulting gig, which got my foot in the door there. And from there, I went into the project management field, started seeking out some more education around project management. It was something that I'd heard of, and I thought, I'm going to try this out. So I got the opportunity at Prime as an associate PM and was able to apply some education to that, work my way up. And I'm currently at Prime Therapeutics. Prior to that, I was at United Healthcare and Health Partners. At Prime, I'm the Director of Supply Chain Shared Services, which has now switched over to Network Compliance. It's an interesting gig. The shared services area is a little different. I don't know if everyone's too familiar with it. It's kind of a blend of everything to support the different business areas, specifically within supply chain for me. And one of those areas is regulatory analysis, as well as client audits and project management, and some communication and business process. The reason I'm personally supporting veterans, kind of similar boat as Mark. I've been in that situation. I came off of active duty. It was in 2008 when the economy just was the worst I think it's been in a very, very long time. And, I wished I would have known about groups like this at that time to help me with, my career, to help me, figure out what works best for me, to figure out the different programs that are available. And, and if there's any way I can help out and just, being able to come and be a panelist on here is one way, I'm 100% for it. So support everything everybody's done and will continue to do so.
Thanks for joining us, Marcus. And we have a lot of vets that come with a logistic background and a supply chain background. So being able to make that connection will be hugely beneficial. Okay, so the next question is, what career opportunities or special programs like apprenticeships, fellowships, managerial training programs does your company have that are particularly good fit for veterans? And what makes your organization an excellent place for veterans to work at? So let's start with Dana this time.
Yeah, so when I got this question, the timing's good. And to be honest, I reached out to Adam just before COVID, and we're just in the beginning stages of developing a program. We are a fast growing organization. We went from like 12 employees a few years ago to 160. And so we're just now implementing a D&I program, diversity and inclusion program. And we just rolled out a robust training initiative where before we were just hiring and throwing people to the wolves. So we're pretty excited that we're now going to be able to look beyond direct experience and just focus on those transferable skills and have people go through a rotational program where they can learn different parts of the business before we determine what would be the best fit. Now, again, it's going to be a small pilot program rolling out this year, but encourage you to follow us on Siteimprove as we continue to develop and grow this.
So Dana, is that starting here near the end of the year or this upcoming quarter or?
This would be next spring, summer.
Okay, so the application timeline is now.
Yes. Well, no, it would be in April. So it's going to move quickly if we can get everything lined up.
Sure. Okay, that's great. Next, let's go with Mark.
Yeah, at US Bank, we had some programs in the past where we would take military people, military background, and fast track them within 9 months to a year into management, branch management positions. But that kind of, it worked its way out, and they're finding new way of programs. We had rotation programs. We went to officer academy programs and looked for junior officers coming out. And that worked out very well. So I know we are looking at future programs, but other than internships, if somebody's in school right now, no formal programs. But they really look for the soft skills in every position we looked at. A former CEO used to say, we can train anybody to do this job. Look at me. So really, what a lot of managers look for is people who care about, passionate about jobs, and they can train up on a lot of them. So it's really individual cases right now, but formal programs are being worked at.
Okay, Mark, are you guys involved with the Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship programs or the DoD Skill Bridge right now?
The Hiring the Heroes, we've attended the career fairs, and I know they have a partnership with them in the past. That's the National Chamber of Commerce ones. Yes.
Right. Okay. Great. Next, Marcus.
Yeah, Dana had mentioned the Diversity and Inclusion Council. We had just kicked off last year. We were part of the inaugural year where I was a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Council at Prime Therapeutics, and since that last year going into this year, we've actually kicked off some employee resource groups. They also might be called business resource groups at different areas. And unfortunately, we as a veteran group that we tried to start did not get selected. But since the end of my term, we actually now have an alumni board that is dedicated to veterans. So at this time, we're in the process of trying to become a yellow ribbon company. We're meeting with one of our partners, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota, to kind of see how they did it. It sounds like they have a robust and very well executed program, so we're going to be speaking with them. So we're hoping to have some more on that. We have like a group page, a Yammer page it's called. It's like an internal, I guess, Twitter at Prime, where we have veterans and allies, family members, so everybody's included, just to show their support. And we use that as an announcement board, as well as, stuff like this for Eagle Group, where we might, if you're, parents there that have a kid looking to get into an organization that are on active duty, a lot of them are, when they come off of active duty, that'd be a great opportunity for us to communicate to them, hey, check this out. So, you come to Prime, there's definitely going to be that inclusion portion for veterans, as well as everybody there. As well, as far as other programs, I know speaking with Katie Bedney before this early last week, we were talking about the different internships, externships, residencies for various types of skills and backgrounds. The hope is to have more programs in the future, and with this group targeting more around veterans. As far as, what makes our organization a great place for veterans to work at, the stuff I mentioned before, but it's a great culture, the different types of positions. I'm telling you, I knew nothing about PBM. My background was HVAC and semi-claims for the VA benefits group, and I'm sure a lot of you have waited years upon end to get your claims processed. So I'm just going to raise my hand and say that wasn't my fault. It was a bureaucratic process within government that made it take so long. So once I got out of there, I went right into that PBM industry, and it's extremely interesting. It's something new. You don't have to understand it to get into it. And kind of like what Mark said, I think Dana, you said it too, is if you have those soft skills, which every veteran I've ever worked with, I shouldn't say every veteran, some veterans have those soft skills, you're going to succeed at Prime.
So I'm going to change, based off just this discussion and how things are going, I'm going to swap the order of the questions around just a little bit and talk about learning more about opportunities at each one of your companies. And so in addition to your company websites, because we're all familiar with those, what are some other ways veterans, job seekers can learn about and stay informed on career opportunities at your organization? As well as what are some of the proactive steps you would recommend job seekers take that they may not be aware of? So this time, let's start actually with Marcus.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say other than the website, connecting with Prime employees on LinkedIn and networking with them, I think is the best. Like Katie had mentioned too, meeting with Adam around Eagle Group and doing that networking there. I mean, please, everybody on this call, send me a request and I will accept it. I know I've worked with people within Eagle Group already where the second I see an opportunity that might, fit their resume or their interest, I look at it and we'll shoot it over to them, say, hey, is this something you're interested in? If that's the case, let me match it up against requirements, get with the recruiter and see what our options are. So please, that's one way. Any and everyone at Prime, if you see somebody there, connect with them on LinkedIn. The company itself, the unique, you're saying about the unique skill set. Was that one of the questions? I'm sorry, did I miss that? What are your company built?
I didn't ask that one, but it was on the list. So the question.
Okay. Well,
let's talk about it since we're
okay.
there.
Gotcha.
So the question also was, would your company build a position around a veteran's unique skill sets? So maybe AI, robotics, modeling and simulation.
I wouldn't say they would build one around it. I would say that if you bring a specific skill set, we're going to figure out a way of how it fits the needs of the company. I think the one thing that comes to mind is I know the diversity inclusion director role. I'm not sure if it's external yet, but I mean that is one thing specifically where we would look to someone with that type of background and understanding and leadership to come in and fill those types of roles. Yeah, I think did I answer all the questions? Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you did.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, next let's go with Mark.
Like Marcus said, network. I can't stress that enough. The networking, the value networking, just being here shows that you are networking. Again, LinkedIn, if you want to seek out, if you're a program manager, seek out somebody that's a veteran program manager, US Bank, search on LinkedIn. I guarantee you, you send them a request, explain I'm a veteran, I'm interested in your company. Do you have 15 minutes for me? I think that's what you talk about, right, Adam? 15, 20 minutes. You're going to get more than that. And it's a starting point. It is a process. So that's the beginning of the process. I don't think we'd actually build out, kind of, again, what Marcus said, build a program or a job around somebody's particular skill sets, but see how we can best fit them. Everybody thinks a bank, the only jobs you have are bankers, and the frontline bankers. And I always explain, just like everyone thinks in the Army or the Marines, it's everybody's infantry, but it's the tip of the arrow, and you still need that shaft, that flight, the knock to drive that arrow forward. So we have all those support positions in the bank. I think we even have a auctioneer. One of my fellow recruiters said they had to find an auctioneer for the bank. Who knew? Proactive steps I've seen people take is reach out to, if you just find a recruiter, and ask, can you help me out? Can you talk to me? If you get that discussion with a recruiter and that's just priceless, ask them, is there somebody there? we have a really strong BRG, Business Resource Group, here at US Bank. Matter of fact, voted #1 in the country out of all 1,300 different business resource groups that were evaluated. We're voted #3 best for vets by Military Times. We have a strong network across our border, our footprint. Somebody's willing to help. Somebody's going to have a conversation. And that's all it is. Start the conversation, connect with somebody.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm glad to hear about the auctioneer position, because I'm ready for a career change.
You ready?
That would be it.
Show us what you got.
No. The other piece, though, and it really reminded me, was one of the pieces of advice that I got at a job fair was that people pass up booths because they make assumptions that US Bank only is hiring financial, positions. I know from my personal experience, that was actually how I connected with MTS Systems, because I wasn't familiar with them at the time, but I struck up a conversation, and through that, I found out they were modeling and simulation company, and I was a modeling and simulation officer, so this kind of works. So that's really good advice, and appreciate it, Mark. Next, Dana.
Yeah, I echo everything that was just said, and I'm sure you guys have heard the stat that 70% of the jobs that are out there are not even posted. So that networking piece is so critical. I had a college student reach out to me a year ago, just simply sent me a message through LinkedIn. Can I meet with you 15 minutes to learn a little bit about this role and what it takes to be successful? And then a year later, we ended up hiring her. And so it doesn't always work, but it's so important to reach out and to build that network and foster that network. We should all, even myself, even though I'm working today, continue to network, because you just don't know what tomorrow brings. And so that is so critical. But then the other thing too is I have a recruiting team, and LinkedIn is our #1 recruiting module. And there's this, analytic research engine that we have where when we go to put in our positions, it will automatically populate profiles from LinkedIn that are engaged with our organization. So networking is most definitely super important, but make sure that you're following the organizations that you are interested in, and also liking their post. And also just connecting with their employees, like Marcus and Mark was sharing as well. So the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more opportunity that you'll show up if a recruiter is using the LinkedIn module.
Thanks, Dana. That's really great advice. I had read somewhere, actually it was from Michael Quinn on LinkedIn, who does a lot of veterans transitions, that LinkedIn is a series of micro conversations with individuals and with organizations, and your comment just really reinforced that.
And just one more tip too, sorry. So I worked backwards when I found this job. So I did see the posting, but then I went to LinkedIn, and small world, I actually knew somebody that worked here, and here I am today. So if you do that research while you're job searching, it could connect the dots.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's take a minute to talk about COVID-19. And so how has your company responded to COVID-19, and how has COVID-19 impacted hiring at your company? So this time, let's start with Mark.
The impact of COVID-19 on US Bank. Well, it's really opened everyone's eyes that positions that they traditionally thought could never be remote, people are doing them remote. I have to say the bank reacted quickly. We are never really in the dark. They communicate clearly, often from the top, and they exactly what they communicate is what they do. So I've never, I think, I've been remote working for the last 3 years. So, but helping people transition, I have, keeping a family. I have my youngest got a job as a personal banker, and that was a call center banker, 24-hour banker, and she was put remote, and she was only about 6 months into the job, really learning a tough job, and they really supported her, and they're still supporting them now. So from what I've seen, communicated, actions taken by the bank, and seeing it on the personal side. I think it's been challenging, but they've really met the challenge. Effect on recruiting, getting hiring managers to understand, no, you're not going to set up a half hour, an hour meeting in person. It's all interviews, and we can't always do it video. So that has been a challenge for hiring managers as much as, I know people complaining and candidates are complaining, hey, this is hard interviewing and searching. It's just as hard on the other side too. People that have always interviewed face-to-face are also forced now to hire somebody and never see them. That's a challenge to get people to accept that and move on with that. So I think that those are, there's been big challenges, but the bank, the management from, our CEO on down, all managers have been communicating clearly, often, and doing what they're communicating and really taking care of the employees the best they can.
Thanks, Mark. It's a good reminder that when we're in job seek mode, sometimes we're really thinking about us, but we need to be thinking about that other person behind the computer screen, and they have the same challenges, same stresses, and same struggles that we're having when we're in that job search.
Mm-hmm.
So, great comments. Marcus.
Yeah, Prime was extremely proactive since the kickoff of this. I shouldn't say the initial kickoff, but in early March, and they sent everybody home. It was purely the way our chief human resources officer put it is Prime's decision-making process has always been focused on the best way to protect the health and well-being of our employees. So that's exactly what they did. There was no risk taken. They said, send everybody home. We're going to go remote. So within that first week of, I think March 10th, through the 17th or maybe a little later than that, we went from, I think 30% at the most remote to 99% working from home, with the exception of a couple people working within the IT area at one of the buildings, and again, taking all the precautions there. So it was very much quick. From my experience, similar to Mark prior to this role, or the role prior to that, was a remote position. So to me, it wasn't really much, but taking it into consideration, some of the employees and the team members who might be new to them, and with daycare not being available, the kids not going to school, I mean, it's just a lot to take on and consider. And the entire way coming from our CEO, Ken Paulus, who, I mean, if you get a chance to look him up on LinkedIn, the most transparent CEO I've ever worked under in my entire life. He sends a Friday message every Friday saying how he thanks what people are doing. He's extremely transparent. If there's issues, he calls them out. And he's been giving up these COVID-19 impacts, or giving out COVID-19 impact reports with our COO, Chris Bent, letting people know where we're at and how we think we're at from a safety perspective, and what the plan is to get us back in the office if we go back to the office. I think if COVID's taught us anything, it's being able to adapt, and then your new norm changes. So, or your norm changes and becomes a new norm. So what does it look like? So at this point, it's still up in the air whether or not we'd even go back into the office. So which is interesting because we just bought like, I think have a 10-year lease on a brand new building in Egan. So I'd hate to see that go to waste. There's other benefits that have happened since COVID happened. There are benefits that we've expanded from a human resources standpoint. So before, you could only go negative into fourth quarter up to, I think, 40 hours, so 5 business days. With COVID going on, we've extended that to you can take it whenever if you have to go negative for whatever reason. I'm trying to think, as far as impacting the hiring, not at all. Also to Mark's point earlier, interviewing is really interesting, and finding those people and getting on a call with them and doing if you have a technical issue, it could be completely out of your control, and that's the way you got to take it. Is this out of your control? Whatever happens on those things. But it's different. Hiring somebody you've never met face to face, and then trying to onboard them, and then on their standpoint, from their perspective, trying to learn this stuff. It's tough, but again, at the same time, I think the philosophy from our top leadership on down is, give it time. Support the team the best way you can. So if you're a new employee, it's not like we're going to say, yep, it took you 6 months, you just can't cut it in this new environment. No, we're going to work with you until we can get you where you got to be. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I was just thinking through what you were saying, and really taking a look, when we take a look at the work environment, not just right now, but even down the line in terms of remote work, in terms of these changes, some of these changes that we're seeing are going to be permanent, some are temporary. So I think there's a certain amount of expectation management that we all have to have as both employers and job seekers as well.
I want to throw in the very beginning with the kids being home from school, it came from the very top. Hey, we understand. If a kid comes in the middle of a call and a video call, we understand. We're all in the same thing together. So they just really went out of the way to reassure everybody. We'll get through this. Everybody's in the same boat.
Absolutely. Dana.
Yeah, very similar. I will say I was on the front lines here because I am the director of HR for Siteimprove. And so this was probably the most challenging time of my career. But I had just incredible support from our corporate office in Copenhagen. And so we were very proactive, getting everybody set up at home and really having that ongoing communication. We looked at all of our policies, all of our leaves, resources, employee resources, because a lot of people were going through a lot of different things. And we had to make sure we're meeting their needs to help support them. And so it was incredible, and I think our team really grew a lot from it, and our employees really were able to get everything that they needed. And we did what I thought was unique is we did an employee survey to really understand where they're at. And we did end up deciding to open up our office because we were learning some mental health issues within the organization, and they were really struggling being isolated at home. And so we went through the preparedness plan and spent weeks getting it ready, 15-page safety measures. And so we did open up a few months ago, and it's optional, and we've gotten just a significant amount of positive feedback on giving employees that opportunity. And with, the hiring, I think that it has been challenging as far as, we do a lot of like what you call headhunting or sourcing, and not a lot of people are looking to make a change. And so because of the lack of security of what's going on, and so we just encourage candidates at least to have a conversation. You just don't know before you say no, that you're not interested. And then the onboarding, for sure, we've had to make a lot of changes to make sure people feel welcome. We had a lot of in-person get to know the departments and leaders. And so now, obviously, that's all virtual.
Yeah, that's such a good point about if you are currently in a job, do you consider career change now? And I think, because layoffs are occurring, we're seeing reduction in forces, we're seeing hiring, at the same time, and the question is, if you're the last one in, are you going to be the first one out? So it's definitely a lot to consider, but I love what you said about just being willing to have the conversation, because the other part is you're secure now, you don't know where you're going to sit, another month from now. So it doesn't hurt to have the conversation.
And maybe it doesn't work out then, but at least you've had that conversation. You can stay in touch, and then 6 months down the road, maybe worth having a conversation again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. I'll do the first audience question here. It's from Terry Naff, and Terry asks, how do you market yourself if unemployed, but past shows consistent long-term employment? Not showing volunteer work, but 8 hours a day looking for employment. So how do you get over that perception?
I'll start off, I guess. That was because I was long-term unemployed, and I had to. Well, one of the things I did when I was long-term unemployed, I took advantage of our post 9/11 GI Bill and jumped in college. I knocked out a degree. I was doing something. I was doing some kind of work, and my some kind of work. I was driving special needs school bus, and people, that special needs school bus. And then I was able to relate that experience about, how it taught me, to be a better person, personal development, helping others. It really kind of changed me and seeing value in everybody and any, everything I do. So doing something, even if you do a job that's, your survival job, that's basically what I called it when I was going through, it has value. You're doing something. You're working towards something. Some self-improvement, networking. You can talk about even the EO group here like this. Some volunteer work, like I said, that's always good. If you can, connect and find out if you're eligible for any benefits. Because unemployment, go to your workforce center, you're all veterans. You can all talk to your local veteran employment rep. You might be surprised. You might be able to get a PMP certification. You might get some additional certification, and it doesn't cost you anything. So that's one of the big things I always recommend. I mean, I blew it. I didn't go in and talk to my veterans employment rep, and I should have known what they do now.
Thanks, Mark. Dana or Marcus, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think it's great advice for sure. And I just say, don't get discouraged and just focus on who you are and what you have to offer and continue to market that. And if you can get a survival job, that is definitely highly recommended, or getting out there and volunteering and continuing to network. And, my husband was unemployed for a year, so I totally get it. But as you just share your story and why you're where you're at, and just be honest, but really focus on, the skills that you have to offer, that you will find that job. It is out there.
Great. Appreciate it. Okay, Adam, I'm going to pass over the baton to you for, I know there's a couple other questions here on the board.
Yep, sounds great. We'll run through some of these. So here's a great one that I have here, and that is, does anyone on the panel have suggestions for the spouses of military veterans who may have a lot of job changes or gaps on their resume due to the military lifestyle, especially to get past the initial screenings? Thanks. That's from the Dobozinskis.
I hate to keep jumping in here, but I drawn off experience. When I was recruiting for United Health Group, I overheard we were recruiting nurses, and I overheard somebody go, I ain't gonna hire this person. They had 2 years here, a year here, a year, and they, going from East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, West Coast. So what did my ears pick up? I said, that's a military spouse. So they go to San Diego, and they're following a Marine or Navy. And, so the biggest thing is just to put it right on there, and that can be an objective, is to looking for an employer where I can, build continuity of employment, that I lack following my husband in the military. You're going to get attention. Just put it right out there, looking, and looking for an employer that I can build, continuous employment with. You find a big employer, they may have different options for you. And nowadays, so many different jobs might be going, remote. You might have that opportunity. So just don't try to hide it. You can't hide it. You explain why.
Yeah, I like seeing it on the resume. I will definitely call that person if I feel like the background fits the minimum qualifications, and
That's great. Yeah, so be up front. Good deal. Thank you. I got another one here from AJ Friday, and we're going to direct this one to you, Marcus, at least for starters. But that is, his question is, can anyone talk a little bit about what it might be like to start working a new job at a company under remote conditions? For example, virtual mentorship or guidance, being able to confirm that you're doing it, quote unquote, right. How to tap into expertise from fellow staff you haven't met yet. Marcus, you touched on it a little bit on the onboarding routine, so thank you for that. But I was wondering if you might be able to expound. And I see where he's going. It's like, hey, how do you get that that mentorship you would normally get and stuff when you're in person, but it's harder because now we're remote.
Yeah, I'll say from my experience, we kind of see that coming, thought it through before the hiring to begin with. So when we talk about that onboarding plan, we assign somebody a buddy or like a peer within that same team that kind of who's more of a senior that has that mentorship type not capability but skill set, and I have them follow, not necessarily follow, but attend every single meeting with them. At the same time, setting up meet and greets for all the people they're going to have to meet with. But really once you get to that point, I mean, probably like 6 months down the road, you get more familiar with all that stuff. Usually your manager will have, one-on-ones, and then your director will have skip levels with you. And that's where you can seek out that mentorship part, So once you feel like you're at that comfort level and you're like, I want to understand more about the company in general and all of that stuff, and have that mentor really assigned to you within the company, we could do that within our own internal team. So the way we approach it was definitely giving the thought of what would it be like to be on that other end, to come in here in this type of situation and just feel like you're all on an island by yourself, where it's, I mean, granted, the technology that we use today with instant messaging, email, whatever you want to, WebEx and whatever, this Zoom, where I can't figure out how to use camera. So all that stuff, I mean, it's available. We leverage the resources, but I mean, that mentorship type program exists within the company, and you'll get it from your leadership.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yep.
And, Dana, real quick, I was curious, as the director, for HR and talent and everything, did you have anything that you would throw in on that? I mean, maybe you've got some visibility on how that's kind of happening when people are coming in remote or whatever and trying to network.
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Marcus said. I mean, we do have a 90-day onboarding program with a buddy and a mentor, and we make sure that we have the individuals meet with everyone on their team and everyone that they're going to interact with. But we also encourage our employees to take initiative and go on our site, go and learn about anyone within the organization. And if they have interest in meeting with them and learning more, that just to reach out and to proactively schedule those meetings. So yes, we have that structure for you, but we also encourage them to do what they can to kind of expand upon that network. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And then Mark, I guess one thing I would just say, like on the same one, I mean, you and I work at the same company. I mean, something I've seen is just, it seems like if I reached out to you and said, hey, Mark, a veteran just got hired here, would you talk to him? Or if there's a veteran who wants to talk to you, I mean, that just happens within the community. I mean, I think like veterans want to talk to other veterans. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh yes, yeah. I think we have a real strong, even spread out across the country as we are. We have an extreme tight network, especially when you get involved with the BRGs and I join calls, all different BRGs. I don't think a call for help ever goes unanswered.
It's great. Good deal. I got two more, Mike, and then we're clear. So this next one is an anonymous one. But what advice would you have for translating your resume for corporate jobs? Any advice for interviewing, and anything specific you'd recommend for a virtual interview? Yeah, Mark, as a veteran and a recruiter that's used to translating resumes, and that example you gave, how would you answer that one?
Plagiarism is authorized and highly encouraged. I talk to people and I tell them all the time. I said, I look. Here's a resume. I said, this is and people build good general resumes, and I always say resumes should be built just to tease them to go, I want to talk to this person more. Okay, but to really, don't expect them to assume you've done what you've done, but you don't have it on there. So when they're looking at a job description, look at those preferred skills. I mean, the general skills, general qualifications are pretty general. If you meet that, okay. Don't assume they're going to see the preferred skills. So if it's, it says full cycle, project management experience required or preferred, You put that in your resume. I have full cycle project management experience, 10 years, blah, blah, blah. So almost take their word for word, copy, paste, reformat it, and be able to, so if they have 9 preferred skills on there and you have 6 of them, make sure those 6 just jump right out, because dummy recruiters like me got to look at it and go, oh, this guy's got exactly what I'm looking for. It's a Jedi mind trick. It's exactly what it says in the job description. This is great. So you got to really, say you have it, but then make it formulated so they want to know more. That's one of the biggest things. Don't just have one resume that you use for everything. We're not sitting down at typewriters typing these out anymore. Take you 5 minutes to reformat it. I've seen resumes, people applying for project management, and they said, objective to attain a job and in relationship management to, it doesn't even correspond to what they're applying for. But they have great attention to detail, like we all put on there. So that's, really tailor your resume to that job description. Don't assume that they are going to understand that if you did this position up here, well, naturally you have these other positions or experiences that, they're calling for. Don't assume that. Make sure you spell it out, because it's got to get by a recruiter to get you that interview, to get you into the front of the hiring manager.
Got it. Thanks, Mark. Awesome. All right. This last one I'm going to throw out here really quick is just, this is kind of a yes, no for everybody here, for each one of you. But we got a lot of folks that are really interested in cybersecurity. Do each of your companies have roles in cybersecurity, and like how prevalent are they right now? Dana, do you want to start? Oh yeah, Mark, we know your answer for sure.
Okay.
I should know this question. So I know we've been looking at security services for our website services, but I'm not quite sure if it's cybersecurity. It was not our core business, but that is something that we have been looking to expand upon.
Okay, great. Marcus at Prime, is that something that's been big?
Yes. I know back in 2015, I used to be a project manager for the IT security program at Prime. And one of the directors that I worked quite a few projects with is now the Chief Information Security Officer there. And I know just working with him back then, his plans about how he wants to see that grow. So there's definitely going to be roles. I know right now there's a little bit of change at the top within IT, but it was really great being a project manager within IT security, because nobody cared about your budget, because all they cared about was making sure that everything was secure. So it was good.
Awesome. Mike, back to you.
Okay, thanks. So what we're going to do for this next section is I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I'll ask it to 2 of you, and then we'll rotate the pairing with the next question. So the first one's going to be kind of based on kind of a extension of what we just talked about, which is about resumes. So the question, and this question will go to Dana and Marcus. What makes a resume stand out? How do you balance those direct qualifications with soft skills? And what are the no-nos? What are the things to avoid in a resume?
Yeah, so I'll start. I mean, really just what Mark has said, matching the resume with the job that you're applying to. But, I think what we really look for is not just what you did, but how you did it. And so we don't want to see your job title and then just say customer service experience or admin experience. At least say something like strong customer service in a fast-paced environment, so we can understand that you've exceeded those expectations. So looking at those achievements, 1 to 2 achievements within each experience, so that we know you didn't just do your job, but how well did you do your job. And the soft skills are critical, and so we are going to look at those. I mean, we do need some minimum qualifications on some positions, whether they have like 1 to 2 years of sales experience. But I just talked to a hiring manager today, and we do what we do at like a job analysis, and they didn't highlight one direct experience. They focused on curiosity, work ethic, adaptability, coachability. And so that's what our recruiters are looking for, and that's what we're going to be looking for in the resume. The don'ts, there's a lot of don'ts, obviously, like misspelled words, and don't put in the objective a different job that you're looking for. Paragraphs, I think the list can kind of go on in that regard. Format, just, you know, there's really good examples online on some good resumes.
Less is more, I think sometimes, especially putting so much on there, you just kind of get tsunamied with, oh my goodness, all this stuff. Like I say, I always say, address the job description, show they have the experience, quantify it. Customer service is customer service experience. However, you know, I had customer service experience. My survey score is 30% higher than expected by the company. You know, highest, you know, 2 quarters in a row. Selected to be a super user and teach others. Just little additional things that go above and beyond, that shows that you're a team player. You're not just going to sit back and do your job. Those types of, you know, soft skills. Volunteered project. As you know, I've worked on projects. No-nos, you know, long resumes. If any of you veterans out there have ever submitted one of those 7 or 10 page resumes you need for government jobs, no one will even look at them. We just don't have the time. So really, you know, be to the point, you know, bluff, right? Bottom line up front, get to the point, make sure you're addressing exactly what they're looking for. And if you don't have it, don't worry. But if you have, you know, 6 of the 9 preferred qualifications, and that's one thing I failed to say is, when you look at job description, at least for us, and I'm guessing with many companies, basic qualifications, that's kind of set. That's set in stone. That's been, you know, this is what we're looking for. But those preferred skills, you can just about bet 99 times out of 100, that is right almost from the hiring manager's mouth. That is what they're looking for. So really tailor your resume. If you have those experiences, put them in there and quantify if you can. Anytime you can quantify. Awards, you know, we have at the bank, we have recognition awards. I'm sure other companies do, just like in the military. You know, you get awards for going above and beyond. So if you did that, point it out.
Great points. And you know, I've done multiple federal hiring actions as well. And so I once had a resume that I had to review that was 12 pages. 12 pages. He didn't get the job. I'll just leave it at that. Don't do 12-page resumes ever.
Yeah, and typos, have somebody else look at it. I don't know how many times I've opened it up. I mean, good golly, Word has a blue line on it, red lines. It tells you if something's wrong.
You know how I have my resume, because I have over 20 years of experience, is that I will put the dates of employment for my first 15 years. And then on the second page, I just say previous experience, and I don't put any dates. And then I can pick and choose what experience I want to highlight that may align with that job. So you don't have to put every job that you've had, just put the first 15 to 20 years, depending on how it fits. And then just say previous experience, no dates, and then highlight those, if that makes sense.
Because I'm guessing that experience you had 15, 20 years ago isn't relevant to the position you're applying for, because those skills have been changed. So that it really is, and that's hard for some of us seasoned people out job seeking, is we want to put everything on there because I want to show everybody how great I am. We're looking for what's relevant to the job that we are screening you for.
I would argue that my dog walking experience is always relevant. Just saying.
Oh.
Okay.
I still have my experience working at Disney World, and that was like in 1999. So.
Okay, so the next set of questions are for Mark and Marcus. So let's talk about phone interviews and phone screenings. So how do you increase your odds of getting a call or interview? And what are the top reasons candidates fail at a phone screen? And let's start with Marcus first.
I think the top reasons that a candidate fails at a phone screen is giving the impression that they're not taking it serious, or some people think they might be overqualified or qualified for the position, so they might come off as dismissive towards the recruiter or whomever is conducting the phone screen. And an inability to really describe your past employment or your responsibilities are usually going to get you to fail that screen. Well, I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question? How do you increase your odds of getting a call interview?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how do you increase your odds of getting a call interview?
Okay, yeah. A resume. If you have a strong resume, um, and you can write your resume to the specific job, like was being mentioned before, and clearly identify any experience that meets minimum and preferred qualifications, you're going to more than likely get the interview. Kind of touching before when we were talking about soft skills, I know one thing that our recruiting team will evaluate is the soft skills once you get that phone screen. So, make sure you're highlighting going back to the resume, make sure you're highlighting those minimum quals and that they're met, and sneak in some of those preferred quals, and that will get you to that phone screen. And once the hiring manager sees that, like Mark was saying, those preferred qualifications are on there, there's a good chance you're gonna get selected for an interview.
Just something to think for all of you, because we talk about soft skills, and so the question after this set is going to be, how do we demonstrate our soft skills throughout this process? So don't think about it for now. Let's go back to the original two questions for Mark. So just again, that is, how do you increase your odds of getting a call or interview, and what are the top reasons why candidates fail at a phone screen?
Again, it's the resume, but be stalkerish. If you have a company or a list of companies, we're all military, so you have your 8 priority targets, your secondary targets. Stalk the company. Be quick when you see a job post up. Don't just, and be selective. Don't post. I've seen people 300-400 applications in. They're not being selective. Be, stalk them. Be concise what you're looking for, again, and get that resume set up. One thing, they're so excited if a recruiter calls you up and says they want to set up a phone screen, and you say, "Oh, I'll do it right now." No, your time's important. Their time's important. Generally, if they're recalling you, they don't have time to do a good phone screen. You want them to prep too, because we do prep for a phone screen. Set up the phone screen. Be ready for it. I can tell when somebody's laying back in the easy chair, and I'm moving around and shuffling around. I hear it. I can hear it. They're not. I'll bring them up something on the resume, and does it say that on there? So they didn't have a resume up in front of them, and I'm saying this because it's true. One of the worst things we're our own worst enemies, because we will take 100% credit for failure, but we won't take credit for success. It's always the team. Although you've led the team, you planned, you trained, and you pulled them through, missions / projects. That's your success. Take credit for your success. So I can understand it, but if somebody doesn't have that mindset, understand the military, they may go, "Well, this person didn't do anything." So take credit for what you've done. Be ready for it. Be sitting up, smile, even if you're not on camera like this. Be sitting up. You can tell the difference when somebody's, and that just tells, if somebody's kicked back and relaxed, they're not serious about it. And if you're long-term unemployed, get the chip off your shoulder. I remember going into interviews going, "Well, here's another one I'm not going to get," and not putting my best foot forward instead of saying, "I'm going to kill this one. This is mine." You got to change that mindset. I'm guilty of it.
I love that advice. I love that advice because we've all been there. We all know how frustrating it can be, and how beaten down you can feel through this process. And so that's great advice. And it's another reminder why groups like the Eagle Group are so important, because sometimes it's not about tactics. It's just about I need to be lifted up, guys, today, because today's not been a good day. So great comments. So this next one is for any one of you three, is really, how do we demonstrate soft skills through the resume process, through the phone interview, through the video interview? How does a candidate really get that across?
Well, I'm going to get technical here, but just because I've got recruiter brain. But when we're looking for those soft skills, we're looking for the evidence behind what they're saying. And so I'm not sure if you heard of the term, the STAR model, where it's situation, action, result. And so when you're trying to market yourself based on a soft skill or transferable skill, where in your past have you utilized that skill and what was the result of that? So when you're in an interview and they're looking for where you are, coachable, or you have critical thinking skills, what specific example can back that up? And I think the biggest mistake that candidates make when they get into an interview is that they get into like a storytelling mode and start rambling. But if you think about the STAR model, where it's situation, action, result, you highlight the situation, what's important for the hiring manager to know, but then where you want to spend most of your time is the action, the soft skill that was demonstrated within the action. And then most importantly is the result. What was the outcome? And so, I had a candidate who worked at Ace Hardware, and he was interviewing for a business analyst job. And he walked me through how the inventory in the back of the building was just complete chaos, and how he utilized his Excel skills and to count all the inventory, organize the data, and then restructure the back of the warehouse, and then save the organization hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. I was like blown away by how he was able to use that experience to market himself for a business analyst job.
Thanks, Dave.
I want to jump in on that. It's the SAR, or we train the managers at hire managers at U.S. Bank, use the EAR: event, action, result. Listen for the EAR: event, action, result, which is situation, task, action, result. And everybody gets nervous when they're prepping for an interview because they want to study and be ready for every single behavioral based question that could possibly get thrown at. And you can't do that. However, you can have a roadmap to answer those questions. And what you said, sometimes you talk too much and you talk yourself out of a position. So and making that answer is like going on a road trip. You know where you're at, you know where you want to get to. This is going to tell you, this is what I did. This is the situation or the event, task, the action I did, and the result. It's a roadmap to get you there. It's like flying a plane. You can take off, you can fly. Now you got to land it. Where do you got to land it? On the runway and before the end. And that's what you want to do. You really use that as a framework to answer your questions.
Great, thanks. So the next question will be for Marcus and Dana. And so let's talk interviews, since we're kind of at that point. So during an interview, what are you looking for, and what makes a candidate stand out as someone that you would want to hire, and what should candidates avoid during the interview?
It's a loaded question. It was a very good question. So, I love this quote, and we've already talked about this, but by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail, by Benjamin Franklin. And so that is so important, right? Preparing. But once you get there, I just want you to be yourself. I just want you to bring the energy and just show your personality. And, obviously through virtual, we have to still dress professionally, have your portfolio and your pen and copies of your resume. Well, you can now virtually, but just making sure that you are well prepared. And that, I think one thing that I hear most from hiring managers is that if the candidates aren't actively listening, like they're talking over them, or they didn't quite hear the question. And So it's just really important to try to be in the moment and have those active listening skills. And then asking questions. If you walk away and don't ask questions, that is an absolute deal breaker, because you're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing you. And, you know, I say rule of thumb, you have to have at least 3 to 5 questions, but the questions are important for you so that you can understand if this is a good fit. But hiring managers do look for that. Did I answer the question?
It did. Marcus.
Yeah, echoing everything that Dana said as well. You know, if a candidate shows up on the virtual or in person, that it shows they researched the company and the hiring team, you know, that's going to stand out to me. Like they said, Dana said earlier, have a few prepared questions that you can ask, but at the same time, make sure you're listening to what's being asked of you. So I think so many times where you'll be in the middle of explaining something or asking a question or giving an answer to something else, and then a candidate will ask a question that's just, you can tell had written down and wanted to ask this whole time, where in the back of my mind I'm thinking, were you really listening to what I was just kind of explaining to ask if you had any questions on beforehand? So I think that's really important. And be conversational in the interview as well. So I know, like, calling out the STAR method, you know, you don't have to be a robot when you're doing that, when you're giving those answers, but at the same time, you know, that's going to show me some of your soft skills as well. It's like, can you hold a conversation and not feel like you're super nervous or you have something memorized in the back of your head? You know, I want to hear how you're going to react when you're in a meeting with somebody else and having discussion about a question you're not prepared for. So, and going back to avoiding the long, drawn out answers. I had an interview earlier in the year where it was tough because I really couldn't get. I really liked the person, and I thought they were going to be a great candidate. It kind of goes back to the resume. So when I'm sitting there and doing the interview, I have that STAR piece of paper in front of me for each of those questions. So I'm going situation, you know, task, action, result. And if you're too prolonged in your answers and it kind of rambles on, I don't have anything written down. So I could be like, man, that was a great interview. And then the next person, yeah, they're a good interview too, but they're more concise. I look down at the piece of paper and I remember, okay, this is what they said, which this other person, you know, I'm not really sure what they said and I wasn't able to write it down. So, you know, you can have a great interview and have a great conversation, but if you're not able to hit those STAR, it's not going to benefit you in the end.
Those are great points.
Mike,
go ahead,
can I have a question I've coached many people on? I've used it, and people I've coached that used it at the end of the interview is a good way to kind of, I call it silver bullet, is you may ask a couple general questions you got prepared, and then say I was interviewing with Marcus, and I'd say, Marcus, I got one last question. In your opinion, regardless of who you hire, what's the biggest challenge they're going to face in the first 3, 6 months, whatever it's going to, and it makes the hiring managers think back, well, you want to know about the biggest challenge. And by saying, you know, in your opinion, who doesn't like to hear someone asking for your opinion? And you say, regardless of who you hire, that takes you out of the equation. So they're not afraid to tell you. And then when they tell you what the biggest challenge is, that gives you one last opportunity to give them a SAR, STAR, or near situation, action, result. I've been in that position before. This is what I did. This is how I overcame it. Our systems are proprietary and kind of hard to learn. I understand that. Last position I was in, it was a homemade system. I did some extra training. I actually became a super user and I trained others on it. I am interested. You know, I'm very excited about this opportunity. I'm looking forward to next steps. You told them one last reason why you should be hired. And hey, I want this job. I'm looking forward to next steps. So it's just a simple, in your opinion, regardless of who you hire, what's the biggest challenge, and deliver that final SAR, STAR.
That question, you could put it a whole bunch of different ways. You know, what keeps you up at night? You know, what is the biggest concern?
Good.
You know, a year from now when I've done great on my eval, what does that look like? But it's really, really important. And one other thing that I've seen happen is we have a whole bunch of questions set up, but sometimes those interviews, maybe the interviewer is running late or time is crunched. And so prioritizing those questions that you want to ask the interviewer, is also pretty critical. Okay, this next round of questions is for Dana and Mark, and let's talk about offers. So when you extend an offer to a candidate, what should they know? And what can they ask or negotiate within reason? And what should they avoid doing?
Dana, you want to lead off?
Sure. I would say that they've got to know the full package. So typically every company is going to, highlight all of those. So not just the offer with the salary or if there's any kind of commission or bonus plan, but the benefits package as well. So if they don't bring that up in the call, I think it's appropriate to ask about benefits. But if the salary doesn't meet your needs in the initial call, it's really in your best interest to not negotiate right on the spot and take some time to look over the complete package, because maybe the benefits alone and looking at that and the total compensation will fit your needs. And so before you go back to negotiate, I really think you should just take the time and circle back and see if you're able to negotiate. Typically for us personally, I mean, we don't typically negotiate above, 5 to 8K. If it's way off, then I think your chances are limited to getting a significant increase right there on the spot. So,
And it kind of goes with the initial phone screen. We're not just screening candidates. Candidates get an opportunity to screen us, and that's part of the screen. And I know it's our practice to ask, what are your salary expectations? And don't, be realistic. Don't try to judge what the position is. Be honest and say, this is what I need to make. And one or two things are going to happen. And it's not like if you say you need $50,000 and the job's paying $70,000, we get to keep $20,000. It's the job's going to pay what it's going to pay. We have pay equity. If we get audited, we have to be fair. So say what you have to, what you need. And one or two things can happen. The recruiter will say, okay, that means that's basic code for, okay, you're within our comp range. If they say, well, that, we are not, let me talk about the whole compensation package, and then come back to you and say, will that work? And I've had that conversation. They say, no. And I say, well, hey, you know what? This job's probably not a fit for you. You got great qualifications. I encourage you to keep looking because this doesn't pay that. So when we finally get to the job offer stage, you've done your job ahead of time. The recruiter's done their job in the interview process. Generally, a manager won't ask that. We're normally within, the offer's within what you're looking for because we already know what you're looking for. And if it's above, you're going to get what it's going to get paid. So the big thing is to avoid that, negotiating at the end and then not having a deal is be honest up front and listen to the whole package. The whole compensation package, because when you look at everything, and that's why our practice is to present the whole. And generally, if they present the whole package to you, then they'll ask if you have any questions and if it fits your needs. But if you've done a good phone screen, the recruiter's done a good job, you're going to be moving forward only because not only are you qualified, part of the qualification is you're affordable.
mm-hmm.
That's great advice. And really, when we look at it, there's a level of pay transparency now that we have not had in the past. Things like Glassdoor and aggregations of pay scales and full positions. And it really has changed over the years. So most candidates will be able to go into those discussions more prepared and informed than in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn it over to some audience questions. It looks like we have a couple. So Adam, back to you.
Yes, absolutely. So first one here we have from Sean Abbas. He said, during the current COVID situation, more and more interviews are virtual. What should someone do if there are technical difficulties? Do you cancel, reschedule, or try to power through the interview? Would hiring managers look at this negatively, as in you do not have the technical skills a company is looking for?
I don't think we'd look at it negatively. I would think I would just wait for guidance for the recruiters. I've had my recruiters just use the phone and finish the interview, or we do reschedule if there's like multiple people on the call. So I kind of let my recruiters guide that, and they typically will have some backup plans for them, but we would never hold that against them.
Got it.
No, I've recently had a panel interview for a very senior position, so that senior people interviewing them, and the technical issues were on our side. So, so it happens, and especially nowadays during the COVID. We understand that there's so much demand and use on technology that technology things happen. So I don't think it's held against. And just be upfront about it. And if you know about it ahead of time, you know you got an interview that day, and you get a notice, hey, your internet's planned to be out this today, reset it. Be prepared that way.
Got it. Great. Next one we have is from Chris Morton. He asks, is it appropriate to ask for more paid time off versus a salary increase? So this is assuming you're getting the offer. So anyone want to contribute on that one?
I can just say, and well, at Prime, I don't think it's negotiable. It's everyone gets that same, I think, time up until maybe 10. It might even just be through your entire career, but yeah, that wouldn't be negotiated.
Got it.
Yeah, for us either too. It's pretty structured. We're pretty equal across the board when it comes to PTO. Salary is probably the most area where you can negotiate. The situation that we're in is we're creating positions, so we don't have established salaries for new positions. So if you know it's a new position, you know, you may have some more opportunity where there's not that salary range and pay scale set because there's only one person within that organization. And if you've gone on Glassdoor and done your research, or salary.com to see where you think that maybe you can be at, you may have more opportunity there for us here than PTO.
Got it.
Yeah, and U.S. Bank is set by grade, and so you can just, you know, the larger the companies, the more formalized things are probably going to be. So whatever they offer, they're going to offer.
Great. Next one here is from Nate Brossard, and he asks, any advice for cover letters? Do you prefer having candidates with cover letters? That's a softball for you, Mark.
There to have it, not need it, and need it, not have it.
Done. Dana.
I never read them. If the company requires it, submit it. If they don't.
Got it.
We don't require
Marcus?
it.
Yep, same thing. I haven't read one yet.
But
Got
no,
it.
I've had managers read them, hiring managers read them when I move the candidate across, and like them or dislike them, especially if it's a position that requires high level of communication, and they read the cover letter in formatting and everything's all tore up from the floor up. So it's made, you know, I don't read them, but I've had hiring managers look at them and make decisions to interview or not to interview, just not so much on the content, but the context.
Got
And
it.
recruiters don't have time to read them, so they're not required.
Okay. Got one last one here that came in here. So this is from Chris Krug. He asked, as video interviewing is becoming more common, what clothing attire is ideal these days, or does it come down to the type of employer or job? That's a great question.
That is a great question. Dress to impress. You know, we have a business casual environment here, but we look for the professional attire, unless the company says otherwise, but professional attire is key.
Yep, same thing at Prime, even in a virtual one. That'll be one of the first things that I notice is what you're wearing, because I'll go up and I'll get dressed up for if I'm going to interview somebody, so I would expect the same.
Right.
And even my CEO, who, well, he's a CGO now, he showed up in an interview with a ball cap and a t-shirt, but we do expect our candidates to still dress professionally. So don't get thrown off by that.
Sounds like the kind of the military approach is the way to go, right? Make sure your uniform looks good, and it's kind of like checking out someone's shoes when you meet them in person. If they're not shined, you're kind of like, hey, what the heck? So, all right, thank you very much. We'll turn it back over to Mike.
Okay, thanks. So next we're going to talk onboarding, and let's see. I think Mark and Marcus are our next contestants. So how do you help military employees get up to speed within your organization? And what advice do you have for new hires to do in their first 90 days? And let's start with Mark this time.
I guess, meet as many people as you can. Learn, you're going to be busy learning your job, but also learning the culture. Find out if there's any affinity group or business groups or any type of groups you'd like to get. It doesn't have to be just necessarily a veteran one. But get involved that way. I mean, you're going to be busy, learning the new culture, and that's a great way to do it. And it's just start meeting people right away. And if they have a veterans business resource group, all the better. You're amongst friends quickly. Yeah, those first 90 days are tough, but and we tend to put our nose down and just be work. But also take time to meet people, because we are, all businesses are all built around people.
Yep.
Hey, Mark, just quick follow-up with Mark's question. Any advice, especially in this COVID-19 virtual world, of how to engage people as the new guy? How do you engage and say, hey, could we do a one-on-one or a small group virtual chat or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I tend to think people are, everyone's been that new guy. No matter how long you've been there, you've been that new guy. And we all remember being in that position, and what a great opportunity to help flash mentor, just help somebody along. I would just, throw it out there. And I don't think anyone's going to say no.
Thanks. All right, Marcus.
Yeah, and same thing Mark said. And like he said, everyone's been that new guy or gal, getting to your first unit. You meet people, and now virtually, it's a little more difficult, but just pinging someone on the team, in meetings, maybe setting up, outside of the meet and greets, just talking about yourself. I think you got to be okay with talking about yourself. Be proud that you're a veteran. Talk about your time in the service, stuff like that. And like Mark was saying, if there's an ERG or BRG at the company, definitely join those or get on their social network type thing to the internal company website. That's another thing I would do in those first 90 days is go through the company website and go through the organizational structure for the entire company. So who you're talking to, who's on emails. I can't tell you how important that is. So once, if you reply all in email within those first 90 days and you don't realize that it's somebody that you probably shouldn't reply all on, or say something on accident, you're going to hear about it pretty quick. So if you get through the org structure, you know who you're talking to, know who you're emailing with, know who you're IMing. And I know one of the things that I did when I was at Health Partners, within those first 90 days that I was there, is I wanted to understand how we're going to work operationally. And who knows more about operations than the chief operations officer. So, try to get it on their schedule. And if they say yes, great. If they say no and totally ignore you, well, okay, well, I'll learn, 90 days from now. But, and it works, you get in there, you can interview them, ask questions where they're going. It's, I should say that I wouldn't recommend that within the first 90 days, but at some point do it so you can guys see where the company's going. They might look at you like, what the hell does this person want? Learn your job first, then come and talk to me. Actually, that's probably what she was thinking when I was talking to her, but in any case, still got to talk to her.
Well, I love the proactiveness. So I think
Yeah.
that's really, really good. Like, not overly proactive, but proactive. Okay, for the next one, it'll be Marcus and Dana, and let's talk career advancements. So you've got the job, you're moving forward, and so what resources are available to you to help military employees progress in their career, as well as develop professionally within your organization? And let's start with Dana.
Yeah, so every employee here goes through a personal development plan. So at the beginning of the year, we talk about the competencies that you want to develop, the hard skills, the soft skills, and talk about long-term career interests. And so your manager will have ongoing conversations. We have 3 career check-ins throughout the year, just to see where you're at. So we follow the 70-20-10 model where 70% hands-on, 20% training, and 10% looking outside the organization to develop your skills. And so yes, we're going to be here to support you, and once we get this plan together, then it's really up to you to also take the initiative and maybe even on your own time continue to develop those skills. We do have a program called a learning and development program where if there's the business need, you can make a case to the organization that you want to go out and get this certification because you feel that it's going to help market you or it's going to be critical for your role or maybe a future role. And so we do have that opportunity as well. And so honestly, like I wouldn't be in my role today without this. I went from being a recruiter now to a leader in HR. And so it was a combination of mentorship, working with my manager, but also working on my own time to develop those skills as well.
Great. And Marcus, I have to look at my list.
Yeah, I think one thing that I learned early on is no one else is going to be responsible for your career except yourself. So you definitely have to be an advocate for yourself and seek out these opportunities at the company, whichever one you end up at. One of the things that is really key is networking. During your one-on-ones with your manager, describing, hey, this is what I'd like to do. What Dana had said about trying to get certifications. I remember when I wanted my PMP, I was a project manager, but I didn't have my PMP yet, put together a business case that I gave to my manager and said, hey, I think I can be a better project manager and better understand this, that, and the other if I have my certification and give me more credibility. So you put this business case together and they approve it and they'll pay for your boot camp and your certification. So take advantage of those types of opportunities. I know some of that is incorporated within our training budgets to help you with that as well. At Prime, we have an internal Lean Six Sigma program. So you actually get certified through a consultant that's at Prime. It's Prime specific, but it is a valid certification within the company. We also have it's a Confluence page. I don't know how familiar people are with Confluence. It's similar to, I'd say, like a SharePoint type thing / wiki. And yeah, it's called Better You. So within Better You, it allows you to look at other career opportunities. I think on a quarterly basis, we have leaders from all over the different areas within Prime that everyone at Prime is able to attend, and they speak to the different opportunities that they currently have open. They speak to exactly what it is they do. So if you're somebody, say, that's working in benefits as a QA analyst, and you go to this Better You, I think it's a 2-day event, you hear about, what does the project management office do? Or really, what is project management at Prime? What does the clinical operations team do, and the different roles that are currently open in those areas? So it's an opportunity. It's really an opportunity for us to retain people so they don't try to look elsewhere, but also letting people understand this is what Prime does, and everyone has a skill that can be used somewhere within the company. So if you're doing something like just to get your foot in the door to the company, and now you're like, hey, this is what I'm going to school for. I want to really get more into this clinical operational aspect of things. There's opportunities there, and you get there, you ask questions. It's great. It's really great. And then we have, it's called Better You Leadership and Learning. So different courses that you can take to better your skills. It's within our CIC, it's like a learning platform where you go and you take these different courses. If you want to learn how to create macros, they have a course on that, and it's all self-paced. And as far as the leadership portion of Better You, it's different courses you can take to better your leadership skills, to go through this. It's like a capstone type program, and at the end of it, you graduate, you do your little paper or whatever at the end of it. But I think we've only had like 6 or 7 people that have gone through the entire program. So it offers all of that. So, and it gives you an opportunity to get exposure to the rest of the company, but also, really build up your internal resume at the company too.
Great. So I think that this will be the end of the formal questions that we have. There's a couple audience questions that are still there, so I'm going to pass it back over to Adam.
All right, thank you, Mike. I got one in the queue here that talks about just what about rejections? If I apply and get rejected, is it worth applying with that same company again? I was wondering if you could talk about how to mentally prepare for the situation of being rejected.
Well, as guys, we're all used to rejection. You've asked somebody out, you get rejected. Did you stop asking? It's yeah, it's worth going back. You just weren't a fit for that position. Maybe you applied too late. Maybe they already are in final rounds. And then, as recruiters, it's, you got a good slate. You present the slate, and they're doing second round interviews. You're not going to muddy the waters up and bring, unless they're really, really outstanding, and bring it in. So yes, it's a process, and keep after it. Just make sure you're having realistic expectations in the positions you're applying for. If you're applying for positions that you really are stretching on, and there's nothing wrong with stretching every now and then, but make sure you have a realistic, you're qualified for the job.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can't say enough. Do not get discouraged. Do not let that get to you. Everyone goes through rejection. Even with my recruiting background, I was a stay-at-home mom during the financial crisis and had to go back to work, and I couldn't find a job. And so I felt that pain, and I got a lot of rejection, and you just can't let that get to you, and just keep moving forward. And yes, most definitely keep applying, but don't what we call like serial appliers, where if you're applying to everything, then the recruiters may pick up on that, and they're going to think you don't know necessarily what you want. So be strategic on what you're applying for sure, and just keep moving forward.
Well, I remember still the day when I got my first rejection, because like I said, I retired from the Army. I walked right into another job, and then I got recruited away from there, went to another job. And then 2008 came around, and I started applying for jobs. And I remember after an interview, that first rejection letter, I'm like, I've never gotten one. I was dumbfounded. I just, it was, so, and like I said, I made every mistake. I stopped applying to that company. So don't let it get you down. It's easy to say it. It's hard to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, anything you'd like to throw in there too? And then, kind of to wrap it up?
No, I mean, I've been rejected more times than I can even imagine talking, and especially once you get through the interview process, you're like, man, all I got to do is get an interview. I know I can get this job. And it becomes a reality quick. Like, whoa, yeah, I guess there are better qualified people for it, and that's okay. So I kept going for the same companies, and specifically when I even applied for the VA, it got rejected like 100 times and eventually got in. So yes, keep doing it, keep applying, but like to Dana's point, don't be that apply to everything, from CEO to whatever the other position is. So yeah, that's all I have to add.
No, that's great. I appreciate it, Marcus. And I guess something I'd say on that one, right, is like, with all the veterans and military personnel on here, right, I mean, we've all been through boot camp or OCS or some other super hard school. And the big thing, right, is just don't quit. Whatever, you don't ring the bell, don't tap out, just don't quit. Because that's what they're trying to do, right? That it's been tough. That I got knocked down I don't know how many times when I was in transition. And just, though, it came down to what you could control. And one of the only things I could control was just picking myself back up, and the veterans know how to do that. So I would echo everything that the panel has just said here. So I can't thank our panel enough. Dana, Marcus, Mark, you guys are great. This was awesome. It just kept going and going and going with just tons of great material. You guys really made an outstanding panel here. Really appreciate it. Mike, you were born to run these kinds of panels. I tell you, you really know what you're doing. Thank you for doing that. Just super grateful, for everything you're doing here. Just really, really grateful. And we appreciate you guys willing to be resources. Both tonight and just being supporters of the Eagle Group. It's really, really great.
No, thank you guys for the invite.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just, with the time we have left, I just want to do a couple things here really quickly. The main thing is, first off, I just want to open it up and see if do we have any landings? Anyone out here on the call here today that maybe was in transition and landed a job?